This was a tough decision, but it was the right decision.
An emotional reunion as 5 Americans freed by Iran in a prisoner swap arrive back on US soil.
5.5 years.
As part of the deal, 5 Iranians were also released from US custody. The US also freed up $6 billion in frozen Iranian funds due to sanctions.
Under this administration, we brought nearly 30 Americans home from places around the world who are being unjustly detained.
Now, it's obviously fantastic news that the 5 Americans have been released from prison and returned home. But what we'd like to know is what more policymakers can do to prevent another hostage-taking by a rogue nation. Because freeing up $6 billion, until now held in South Korea, is hardly sending a message of deterrence.
The agreement in question is simply allowing the transfer of these funds from one bank in one country to another bank in another country, where they can be used exclusively for humanitarian purposes.
Humanitarian purposes, according to the White House, means food, medicine, medical devices, and agricultural products only. And while that may be so, it does free up other Iranian money for terrorism and such.
This money belongs to the Islamic Republic of Iran, and naturally we will decide, the Islamic Republic of Iran will decide to spend it wherever we need it.
Iran has paid no price for imprisoning Americans and has now been paid a ransom for them, money that could end up funding terrorism by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Let's also not forget that Iran snatched a couple of the released Americans not long after the last hostage trade with the US. It's part of Tehran's business model, and it works.
The incentive system is now put in place, not just for the Iranians, but for the North Koreans, for every bad actor that says, take an American, you'll get $1 billion.
Also condemning the deal were Senators Katie Britt and Tom Cotton, who, like other members of Congress, weren't informed of the details until September the 11th. The deal itself is shameful enough, wrote Ms. Britt in a statement. But the Biden administration choosing today of all days to notify Congress that the president is handing $6 billion to the biggest state sponsor of terrorism in the world just adds insult to injury.
The only thing this deal is going to do is going to fuel Iran's campaign of terror against America and America's interests and allies around the world, and ensure that we have even more hostages taken in the future.
As already stated, 5 Iranians were also released by US authorities as part of the deal, and before the prisoner swap went through, Iran was already criticizing the US over negotiations.
This could have happened a long time ago if the American side cooperated and did not relate this to other issues, including the nuclear deal.
President Biden has warned Americans not to travel to Iran. But like we wrote in our editorial, the US should be firmer and say that Americans who travel there do so at their own risk. That includes dual citizens. People need to know that no ransom will be paid in the future for their release.
Remember, this is a nation that has done recent maritime operations in the Persian Gulf with Russia, with China, and now Iran. Their attitude hasn't changed.
The US and its allies also need to make clear that Iran and other countries who take American hostages will pay a steep price. That could include diplomatic steps such as expelling Iranian diplomats, imposing economic sanctions, and harsher forms of retribution against Iranian assets and officials. Right now, the Biden administration's approach isn't sending the right message.
The whole world's gotten the message. Take Americans hostage, you get billions of dollars.